and welcome to the newest episode of Before They Knew Better, the podcast from DIY Magazine. My name is Lisa Wright, and here is my co-host and producer. His name is Giles Bidder.
That's me.
Hi, Giles. Today we are joined by the wonderful Kate Nash. Kate Nash obviously came to prominence as like one of the first sort of Myspace heroes. I feel like it was her and Lily Allen that were leading that charge circa mid-noughties of like fan championed young cool artists that were coming through and becoming the internet's first kind of self-made stars. That is something that came up a lot in today's conversation with Kate. Obviously this is a podcast about childhood, about teenage years and growing up. Sometimes it tends to err towards the younger end. This time around, I think naturally it ended up with Kate talking a lot about those first years. Because, I mean, like, how often do you get to speak to somebody who's lived that sort of, like, she was still just about a teenager at that time, but it was a wild, I mean, for anyone that remembers that era, like, she was completely everywhere, was in the middle of a kind of media storm, was getting hounded by the paparazzi, but was also like this kind of cool indie person who didn't really want any of that, as you will find out, has always had really creative DIY ethics and found herself in this weird position of suddenly being thrust into the tabloids. So there was a lot of really interesting chat for anyone who grew up around that time or beyond, or is just a fan of Kate or of cool people chatting about their, ways in general. But we also asked Kate to bring in, as always on Before They Knew Better, an object, a photo and a song that represents moments from those formative years. And as well as some good old Myspace era chat, there was some nice chat about her sister, about some formative influences, about the dynamic in their house, about her Irish roots. There was loads of gold. So Kate has a new album coming out. It is her first album on Kill Rock Stars legendary label. It is called 9 Sad Symphonies and it is out on the 21st of June. So go give that a pre-order. There's a couple of songs that you can already listen to out now, including Millions of Heartbeats. And until then, stay tuned and listen to the newest episode of Before They Knew Better with DIY Magazine and the wonderful Kate Nash. This is a podcast about nostalgia and remember the times when you could just carry on and do everything to your body and it didn't just slowly sort of crumble into dust. I feel like when they say that youth is wasted on the young, the bit that's wasted the most is just that hardiness of literally like just whatever you do to yourself, you're sort of okay. Like if you go out 6 nights in a row, you feel kind of fine. If you accidentally fall over, you're sort of fine. And
I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, if you see like someone our age fall over, it's really upsetting. It's like really scary. It's not like, I mean, people will still laugh, but I'm like, oh my God. Or even, okay, if you watch like an action film now, I'm like, ow, that was just going to fuck up my back so badly. Like it's so unrealistic.
Yeah. But you're a wrestler. Come on. Like, But
I'm talking, I mean, listen, like there's a difference. Wrestling, but then like action movies these days are on another planet. Like I don't know what's happening. What's happened to like even the Fast and the Furious, which I love the franchise, obviously. But like nostalgia, if you take it back to like the original first sort of 2 or 3, and now, have you seen the newer one?
No.
I watched a Fast and Furious and now there's about 60, so I can't ever catch up.
It's now like there's literally no laws of physics apply to the film whatsoever. Like they walk into a building and the bricks are just like moving. Like I think they're going to go to space next. I do. I seriously do, because they've done everything else. And like in the last film, the walls were moving in a way that I was like, oh, they're totally setting us up for like a sort of sci-fi edition. The next one is going to go to the moon or something, and then they're going to be like stuck in space for family. I'm up for it, but it's just like the realism in action films is gone. It's a lost art.
Was it the third series of the OC where like Ryan's parents died or Marissa's father died, and then there was like an alternative universe where Ryan died and joined her?
Really?
Yeah, it's a bit. So I mean, I mentally kind of checked out because I thought, oh, this isn't Death Cab for Cutie.
When did Marissa? Oh, this is spoilers though, isn't it, for people that might not?
Spoilers. 15 years later.
The OC by now, then your time's gone. Like, when did Marissa? The bit where she's like in the road and Ryan's car, and there's like a burning car behind moment of our youths. That's the last thing that I remember. But maybe they go to space. Remember this sort of middle hallucination, like the stony bit of the OC.
Were you into that soundtrack, Kate? That soundtrack of like Death Cab and Shins?
No, that was like before me. It was right before. I was like, I was not doing music, I don't think, at that point. I feel like it was like 2005, was it?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So just on the cusp.
Yeah, I was into it, definitely. I mean, it was the OC. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
What was so that was 2005, and your sort of big breakthrough was 2007?
Yeah, it was way before time.
Yeah. Remember those days when the music career was just a glint in the milkman's eye. So that was literally like a sort of 2 year from not doing this at all to now I am a famous person. That's quite a wild.
Yes.
Like, when you look back at that time now, did it feel like this mad whirlwind even then?
Yeah, it did. It did. It's really strange looking back, because I can't help but look back on it. I look back like through the lens of like, you know, my career and what things were like for artists, and then like what things are like now for young people and stuff. And I can't help, and I get asked about this kind of thing a lot too, about like, is it better now, or what advice do you give to young people? And I'm like, I don't really know, because it's so different. And I also like, there's so much pressure on young people now, so much. Like, of course, what happened to me as a non-famous person with like no famous people in my family and like literally no experience of it, there was stress involved in suddenly becoming famous and like navigating the music industry, and the music industry is a nightmare. So it's like there was a lot of stress in navigating that. But there's so much pressure on young people now to produce so much content and to sort of be like all these other things. And like we're telling them like, oh, there's really no value on your actual music. Like, so what else do you do to kind of sell? The music can help sell you as like a brand. And you're like, wait, what? And I'm like hearing these stories of like young people that have done like so few shows, like hardly any shows, and like released like an EP, and they're like, I need to change my image and change my brand because I'm too much like this like one other act. And I'm like, what? There's so much thought in the imagery, like there's so much pressure about how they need to look and like have everything figured out and have, I guess, loads of money to like supply that look. I don't know, it's just, I look at it through that lens, because I look at it like, oh, it was in a weird way like this simpler time, and especially for me because I entered through Myspace, which was like this blip in our history, and I think the freest, coolest time ever, because teenagers were actually in charge.
It was very sort of like crowd A&R.
There was no one in charge of like playlists. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was just kids like being like, I love this, and it was like my demo of like the nicest thing recorded in my bedroom had like millions of fucking streams or whatever. Like, kids were just choosing like what they wanted to listen to, and no one was guiding them. And I think that's so exciting. And then they were like, no, get that off. Like, we got to control everything, and like playlists and gatekeeping radio and money and blah, blah, blah. And it was like 2 years of just like pure freedom. And I think I just slipped in that gate.
Were you not putting pressure on you? You didn't have pressure from family or friends to write, to be a writer, to be an artist?
No. No, my mum was a nurse. My dad is like a systems analyst. His screen just looks like zeros and ones. Like, they were really supportive of me and my sisters growing up. Like, anything we kind of had an interest in, you know. We got a trampoline.
Sick.
Could have gone so differently.
Yeah, I know, right? My sister did horse riding. We tried out hobbies. We were swimming. Like, our parents were really supportive of us having hobbies. I wanted to play piano, so my mum got me piano lessons. I always sang at school, and then I just started writing in like composition music at school. And what happened? Okay, so I went to the Brit school. This was the first thing where I like made a decision where I was like, I want to do this thing. And it was a bit of a like effort for my parents in a way that was a bit like, you know, they've since told me, we were like, you're not going there, because we lived in Harrow, and the Brit school was in Selhurst in South London. And they were like, it's just too far. Like, you can't just like travel an hour and a half every day to freaking school. Like, they humoured me and they were like, we'll go to the open day, because I heard about it because this girl above me got in. And everyone was like, oh yeah, Johanna's going to this amazing performing arts school. It's free. And I was like, what? I was like, where is it? Like, Johanna, what's this school? Like, tell me. Found the website, which was literally just like, you know, like nothing on the website, just like a page. It was like the Brit school. And I was like on the website, like, oh my God, I need to go here. And my parents took me to the open night, and then they were really impressed with the school. And after that, that's when they let me actually apply. Because
How old were you at this point?
I think I was 15, and it was like sixth form. So it was like the end of like school, like year, go and choosing whether to carry on at my school for sixth form or like go to like an external, you know, college. It was for a BTEC national diploma.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I applied to theatre and then got in, and I just loved it. I loved every second of it. I was at school as late as possible. Like, we were like thrown out, like, you've got to go home. You know, I couldn't get enough of this school and meeting new people and being in South London. And sorry, my voice is so fucking gone.
It's okay. You're doing great. It's really got a good hit rate. Like, I feel like even on this podcast, we've had at least like 4 or 5 people that went there. And I feel like the sort of accessibility of it and the fact, because it's still free now, right? I think.
I would assume so. I don't know. But I mean, say what you will. Like, that's amazing. What do people say that's bad about a free performing arts school? That's what we need. Like, there are many paid for performing arts schools. There are many rich people that can choose arts as a career. There are many rich, like, actually right now more than ever, we're saying, oh, by the way, you have to be rich to do this because you don't get paid for your music.
For sure.
You don't make money on tour, and you don't make money from the recorded music. So like, you better be rich. Like, having a free performing arts school is so important, because the diversity within the school for me was just one of the greatest things about it. Was like how mixed everybody was. It was so exciting. And there was people that had money, and there was people that didn't, and there was people that were traveling down from like Birmingham, and there were people that were from South London, and there were people like me. There was just people like from everywhere at this school. And it really did, like, I think there's something about choosing your path at that age, right? That you're like, I'm dedicated to this thing, that everyone's like, I want to be here. Exciting coming from school where everyone in the classroom is like, I don't want to be in here. And then all of a sudden, like, everyone's like, we're here for this one thing. The teachers were inspiring, and the freedom that you're given and the independence that you're given gives you this like excitement around your creativity that you're sort of, if you're not quite treated like an adult, but you're sort of getting that first experience of independence. And I think that creates this environment of like, we're going to like soak this up, and we want to soak each other up in that. And everyone would kind of be in awe of each department too. You know, there was musicians that were almost like famous people at the school. They'd be like, oh my, I mean, Adele was there when I was there, and she was just Adele, you know what I mean? Like, she was like.
Did you get the vibe even then that she was going to be something sort of quite special?
Adele always wanted to be Adele, and like, I think everybody always knew Adele was going to be Adele. Like, she just was Adele. It wasn't like much, not that much has changed in a weird way. Like, of course, for all of us, we go through like style evolution and like things about us as from children to adults. But in terms of like Adele being Adele, like, nothing about Adele's career shocks me, because I'm like, that is exactly what she set out to do and wanted to do. And we all were like, yeah, that's what Adele's going to do. Like, Adele's going to be Adele. You know what I mean? In a weird way, I feel like there was so much like capacity to dream there.
Yeah.
So much respect for like the arts, which in England is different, you know. to find people that are like taking it seriously as a career. There's pockets of it and like niche fan bases of things. I mean, I think that's changing more and more, but this was 2005.
Do you think, would you have gone down the sort of like trying to go and shop around record labels, trying to do all that? Like if you hadn't have kind of found an audience on MySpace, like what do you reckon your path would have been?
I have no idea what my path would have been. I think I would have tried, because I was like researching like I was researching like, how do you get people to hear your demos? How do you get people to come to your shows? You know, I was like trying to learn about radio and record labels. I was definitely like, I probably would have just like sent out demos but like why I got signed is because there was excitement around me. I already had an audience from the internet that no one had been in control of. And then those people were actually, this is interesting too now, because those people were actually coming to my shows, and my shows were buzzy and exciting. Like what difference between like a TikTok, somewhat a viral moment for someone, there's like musicians that have like 50 million TikTok followers and no one comes to those shows. And we're seeing this like gap in like, how do you bridge that gap of like fans of like viral content? And then I'm like, is this really, is it? I don't know everything about it, but I'm like, is it that important, you know, to tell your artists? Because you hear these stories that like my label just like has me making TikToks every day. That's what I spend most of my time doing. Is it that important if the people that are like going to make the videos viral aren't even going to like buy a record or come to the show? Like, we're not talking about longevity. We're not talking about careers. We're talking about like weird clips of like nonsense.
Instant gratification.
That, yeah, for some reason, like pop off. And then maybe you'll get a song. Like the one thing is like, if your song pops off on TikTok, I guess you'd earn money on streaming. But again, like, I'm not sure that like that's translating to fans, to like fans of music. And I wish the music industry would concentrate on that, because you're asking people to do something so unrealistic. You're asking people to go, okay, work really hard to get a viral video. I did it, I got a viral video. Like, okay, great, do that every day then, forever. What? Do you know what I mean? Like, when are you supposed to stop like trying to get viral videos? Like, never. Like, you just have to always do it. And it's like, that's not a career, you guys.
Were you clued up on having a career when you were a kid? Did you have an entrepreneurial streak when you started going to Brit school?
No, I don't think I had an entrepreneurial streak. I don't think I have one now. I'm not business minded. Like, I'm an artist, and I'm like I think for me, the most important thing is like building relationships with fans, build relationships with fans, real relationships. That's the most special thing ever. The messages I just got from my fans after this show, like, brought tears to my eyes. Like, there's such a connection that you can have with fans through music because of what music means to people, because of how personal it is. And those people like are buying tickets to come and see you perform, and like you're soundtracking their lives. That's what we should focus on, surely, because that's so special. And not everyone can do that, and not everyone has that. Like, anyone can be on TikTok doing a viral video. There's no difference between like me being viral and like a model or an influencer or an, you know, it doesn't, but like no one can really do what musicians do. And that's where what I think, I wish you could focus on building that, like major labels, but like who cares? I mean, what are they focusing on? I don't know. I don't know why I even care. I think I care because I just feel like young people have got so much pressure on them. And also we're starting to say that this is only for people that are privileged. And I don't like that. I don't think music is for a privileged club of people. We need to see the problem. You know what I mean? We need to see what if we're saying music's worth nothing, not going to profit from anything. You know, it's 800,000 streams to make minimum wage. Like, we're saying that this is we're saying that this is a really exclusive club, and your parents better be able to like look after you. And not everyone has that, you know. Why do we want that from artists? I don't. I want diversity. I want rich people to be able to make music, but I also want people that aren't rich to be able to. We need diversity. It's like, don't think there's enough conversation this is what all of my interviews come back to, by the way. I'm so sorry I hijack every conversation to talk about this.
No, but it's important. And I think, like, you know, when we are talking about like when you first came into the industry, and I guess, you know, people kind of see MySpace as, you know, the first window into social media, and, you know, the first sort of domino, whereas actually you are right that it did feel so much more like ran by people, even though there was obviously Tom from MySpace or whoever, you know, those people were sitting in his little box with his profile photo. Like, there was something that felt a lot more sort of like cooperative about it in a strange way, where like everyone was making, people were making stars out of from themselves and just from like people chatting to each other and telling people about things. And I guess like you and Lily Allen were like the sort of first real kind of breakthrough artists from that. But like, it didn't feel like, I remember listening to like, you know, your early songs and her early songs and thinking like, oh, this doesn't feel like stage managed in any way. Like, it felt really like it was kids getting excited about stuff because you were still either a teenager or only just not a teenager. And it was like, oh, this person's sort of saying what my mates say. And that was like the first time that sort of like young people had nominated their young person to be a spokesperson for them. Is that like how did it feel like being someone where a lot of your fans were the same age as you? Like, did it feel like that was the sort of community?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know my algorithm history, but algorithms, I don't know if they were around. I don't really know exactly what they are, but like, they weren't obviously working in the same way that they are now, where like I go on Instagram and I'm just like advertise trash and conflict and, you know, just to try to get me to stay on there. It was pure, and no one was there was no ads. You were just, what I would do, and I loved MySpace too, because I think that like the experience like with music is something that makes music so fun. And we're looking back on our music memories is exciting, because you're like, you know, like I look back, when I think about music memories, I think about like when I was like 7 years old, lying on the floor, listening to my parents' like massive stacked CD player and record player, and had these big headphones, and I would listen to like Nilsson Puppy Song and like the Beatles and like Puff the Magic Dragon. And I was like, oh my God, I just love songs. And then when I was 14, I got my own CD player, and it was like a Sony hi-fi system, and it was shiny and it was silver and it was so beautiful. And I was like, I'm in love with it. And I have my own bedroom, and I have an IKEA heart-shaped silver pillow. And I'm like, I would like hit record on like songs. You know, I had an experience with music. And then MySpace was like the next sort of evolution of that, where I would go on and I'd be like, okay, top 8, you know, who's in my top 8? Let me find this person. They've got this random song playing on their song. I'll click on that. And then it goes to like, you know, it was like Romy from the XX when she started. And then like, she's got a top 8 and she's got someone in here. I want to see who her musician friends are. And then I'd find all these like random like acts, and you just found people. Like, it was such a fun culture of like finding music that I don't have now. I don't know, like, you know, that where that experience comes from, apart from like, I guess, going to gigs and seeing support acts or
WhatsApp groups, just people recommending it to friends and family.
That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah. Like anything that gives you that feeling of like, oh, I found something new and it's like my little thing. And that was just MySpace to a T. Like, and we were all young and like self-identifying, which is so important when you're young. Like, your bedroom always like, this is who I am. And your MySpace it's like, and this is who I am. And let me prove like what I'm into here. And you're like building this like thing that's like, it's got a statement to it. And it was really fun, because I was just starting to play shows and I was meeting other musicians. And that's a really exciting thing, because you just start to build like a culture. That's how scenes start, you know, because it's just kids playing shows in the same kind of area. So I met like Peggy Sue, and like I met like cool, weird, like, you know, like electro bands and just like indie artists. And I would play like weird little festivals in Brighton and get the train down there and have my guitar on my back. And like, I was just so excited to like be doing something outside of working in Nando's. And like, I was like, I'm living my dream. Like, this is what I want to do so badly. And I remember when I got an email from the Barfly, not an email, I got a DM or message on MySpace from the Barfly, and I was like, this is it. Like, this is what I've been working towards. Like, I've made it. Like, all my favorite artists have like played the Barfly. I can't believe I'm going to play a gig in this iconic venue. And I remember I played Electric Gardens Festival. I think I didn't have an agent. I think that was through MySpace. You know, I was on at like 1 p.m. after a DJ, and we just like got everything into my sister's Renault Clio and like drove down, stayed at my like aunt's house on the way, and like made it there. And I thought all these people, the tent was like packed, and I was like, yes. I thought all these people there for me, they were all just leaving after the DJ, and I was like, oh shit. But still, I was like, oh my God, I'm playing a festival. Like, this is my dream, you know?
Yeah. So you were ready for it. You had that excitement stored up in you from being a young teenager, and it's like, this is the thing. This is the vehicle of it.
Yeah, I just was like so into music and gigs, and like wanted to be doing something creative. And I'd worked in Nando's, and my friends a lot of my friends got into university and drama school, and I didn't. And so I think I really cultivated, like, I definitely from a young age was like, I need to be doing what I want to do. I want to be involved. From being like, I want to go to the Brit School, I want to be in this club, or I want to play piano lessons and write songs, to then realizing, like, when I was in Nando's and my friends were in, like, you know, drama school, I was like, part of it is boredom, part of it is I want to be doing something too, and part of it is knowing, like, I just have to create things for myself. Like, I knew that was really important. And the other thing was knowing that, like, I'm going to have no backup plan. You know, people always ask, like, did you have a backup plan? No. If you have, I had an awareness that, like, whatever you put your energy into is what you're going to cultivate. So, like, if I put energy into, like, having a side job, then that's going to actually end up taking up most of my time, and then I'm going to be busy doing that, you know. And then it gets harder to pull away from the thing that you've cultivated, because you build and grow and you get, like, you know. So I knew really early on that, like, if I want something, like, I have to put everything into that. And so I mean, it's very idealistic, and I was living at home, you know. So I think it was River Island I was in. By the time I did my first gig, I was in River Island. My timeline gets a bit blurry. I was in Nando's, and then I had a heart condition. I had heart surgery, and maybe that was part of it too, because there was like this life-threatening, like, surgery and big thing that happened to me as a young person. I didn't really think about it at the time, but I do now. You know, as a 36-year-old, I'm like, oh, that probably connected to me to, like, going for it a bit. And I quit Nando's after my heart surgery, because they wanted me to come back to work, like, really quickly. And I was like, I'm kind of, like, recovering from heart surgery.
Actually had heart surgery? Yeah.
And I quit that. And then I ended up needing to get another job. So I got River Island. And that was it was a horrible job, but it was great because it was, like, right near HMV. And so
nice.
On my breaks, I'd be like, yeah, HMV, like, buying CDs. And that's when I got into punk music and the Buzzcocks. There was like a Buzzcocks CD on sale in HMV. And I was like, oh, I've heard of this band. Never really listened to them. You know, let me get into this, put it on. And I was like, life changed. I was like, oh my God, I thought I had to be like Jeff Buckley and some, like, deep poet. And I was like, actually, I can be the Buzzcocks and just write about, like, my own life that's kind of boring and mundane, but really meaningful as well to me. And I was like, simplify it. You know, they're not talking about these, like, music before was these, like, grand poetic gestures. And when I had the Buzzcocks, it was like, oh, like, meat and potatoes, like, my life. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is actually really relevant to me.
Love that.
Yeah.
Was that when you started writing the stuff that would become the first album?
Yeah, that's when I started writing things like The Nicest Thing and Birds. And, like, I'd write something like that and be like, oh, I love this. And this feels like me, and I'm not trying to change myself.
Yeah.
And then oh God, my timeline is so foggy, but I broke my foot, I think, around then. And I, like, got my last rejection from, like, the Bristol Old Vic, which was, like, a really laborious audition process. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going, I think maybe it was like the second round, I can't remember, but I was just like, all right, I'm really, really not going anywhere now. Like, this is it. River Island is, like, the foreseeable future. So, like, what do I do? And I promised myself that after my foot was healed, I was like, I'm going to write these songs. I'm like, you know, Nice Thing came out and birds. I'm like, let me keep going down this path. And once my foot is healed, I'll book my first gig. So my plan was like, you know, let me put together these demos. And MySpace was like around, and I was like, I'm going to make a music MySpace page. I already had like a personal profile, and I was really scared to make the music one because I just thought like, what are my friends going to think of me? Like, oh, she's trying to be a musician. Like, oh my God. And I was like, just do it. So I had these little goals, and like the foot being healed was like the marker of like, that's when I'm going to go and like confront the fear of actually doing a gig. And as soon as my foot was healed, I walked into Trinity, which was like our local bar in Harrow. And a boy I went to school with was the promoter there. And he was like a couple of years above me or something. And he was like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'll listen to your demo. Yeah. And I had like www.myspace.com/Kate Nash music written on the CD. And I like waited. And then he basically just messaged me on MySpace and was like, yeah, cool, book you. And my first gig was April 13th, 2006. And I was terrified, absolutely terrified. And I got my mate Jay. Well, he wasn't my friend at the time. He was like a kid that was from gigs at Wembley Rugby Club where kids all in metal bands played.
Nice.
And I used to go there on like Friday nights. And I knew of him. We'd been in like the same circles. And my mate who was in a metal band was like, I think Jay would be really good to play with you, because he was the guy that basically stood in for anyone who was just puking, like then couldn't play their instrument anymore, whether it was like bass, drums or key, you know, he would just stand in and do it. And Jay, like I called him. This story feels really important, even though it's a random bit of information, but I called his house phone and his mum answered and was like, oh, he's just in the bath. Let me just see. And I was like, oh, don't worry. And then he still wanted to take the call, even though he was in the bath. And I spoke to him while he was in the bath. And I was like, I think me and this guy, like, I think we're going to get on. Like, I really love the fact that he just was like, yeah, cool, sounds good. And I was like, great. And he's like in the bath.
Just suds coming into the sort of
Bubbles up the
landlines though. Yeah. I mean, like if you call a landline, it was a simpler time. Like you gotta ask the mum, which was always nerve wracking. Like I remember distinctly, like if you had to try and like call up someone you had a crush on, but it wasn't just calling up someone you had a crush on, it was calling up their mum first. Yeah.
So different.
So much braver, I think.
Yeah.
But then this happened, and I mean, I was just looking up having a little peep on your Wikipedia while you were saying that, and I had no idea that there is maybe a sort of 14-month period from first ever gig to foundations and everything blowing up and going mad.
No.
That's such a tiny window. Like, did you feel ready for it when that happened?
You don't feel ready for it. You don't know what it is. You don't know what you're ready for. I think like certain things I was like ready for, like I wanted to do that. I didn't know what fame and all of that entailed or what that really was, but I wanted to be like a successful, like famous musician. Like that's what I wanted. But yeah, after I did that first gig, I had the best time and I was like, that was so fun, definitely doing that again. And then the promoter came up to me and gave me 30 quid. And he was like, oh, here's your money for tonight. And I was like, oh my God, I'm actually getting paid for this. And so I was great, I'm quitting River Island. Next morning, rang River Island. I was like, hi, I've taken steps towards the career that I actually like want. So I'm sorry, I can't come back. And they were like, bring your key fob. And I was like, no.
Never.
I was like, I'm doing it. Like I was like ready in that sense, but you're not really ready for like the English press. Yeah. The Daily Mail and like paparazzi chasing you and like just sort of like what being famous means in terms of like the chase and like the judgment on you. And like your acne being highlighted in, you know, papers and people just commenting on like the way you look and saying you're too ugly and too fat to be a pop star and being like 19 and being like, well, yeah, I mean, I don't know, am I? But also just being like, fuck, like a little bit of me, there was part of me that was very negatively affected by that. And then there was another part of me that was like, I was born with a bit of like audacity in the sense of just being like, oh, fuck you. Like, I'm ready for like, if someone like tells me I'm to this, I'm just like, oh, I just want to like throw sand in your eyes and like, you know, fight back.
Bit of chutzpah.
Yes.
So we asked you to bring in a photo, an object, and a song, and this might go back nicely to you. So the photo that you brought in is you, I'm guessing, with your sister, in a little bunk bed.
Yeah.
There's a sassy conversation going on at that particular point, but there is a lot of sort of 90s films, classic young girl picture of a horse. Got to have a picture of a horse in your bedroom, otherwise did you even have a childhood? And various other posters and things. But yeah, I mean, how old are you in this photo? And do you think, like, were you always quite a sort of confident child with a bit of like get up and go?
I was always quite scrappy. How old was I there? I don't know. How old do you think I am there? Like
6?
Yeah, like 6 or something.
Something like that.
7. And I don't know if I'm like reading to my sister or something, which seems like very nice of me, especially because my sister was like the real puppet master of all of our sisters. Like if there was fights, she was always on someone's side. Like it was either like me and my younger sister against my older sister, or my older sister and younger sister against me. Like Helen was always like, and me and Claire like never saw that coming. Do you know what I mean? Like we never realized that until like our 30s, where we're like, wait, you were never the one that was. And she's like, yeah, I know, I'm the puppet master of the family.
How has it taken you this long to realize?
Yeah, she would like scratch her name like into our bunk beds. No, scratch my name into her bunk bed so that like I would get in trouble, stuff like that.
Oh my God. Outrageous.
But here I am reading her story. Probably performing, you know, all the voices and.
Well, one of your sisters is like your manager or works quite closely with you. No,
my younger sister used to work with me though, and she supported me. She has her own business now, but she did merch for me for ages, and then like helped me on the road and like assisted me, and we worked really closely together through like the Girl Talk years. And I'm very close with my sisters, and they're very like they are involved even now in a way of just the community. I think of like my family are always at my shows, like they're really supportive of me, and we've just been through, it's like a family that doesn't really know the industry but has gone through like what I've gone through in my career, and so their opinion is, we just have like a lot of community around when you've gone through what I've gone through, I think, and you've gone from like being on a major label and like suddenly becoming famous, and then being dropped and like going independent and carrying on down the road, and then your family and friends become part of the team, you know, to like help you. And my family and friends have helped me so much. So now it's really nice because every time I do a gig, it's like really celebratory, and even my fan base feels like that because I was so DIY, and that DIY spirit has never left me. And it's like every time we get together, like my London show, it's like, oh my God, guys, I can't believe what we've been through. And everyone's like, I know. And now we can just have a party.
New record on Kill Rock Stars. And that label seems to like a similar thing. It's family, it's friends, it's people who are there because they want to be there.
It's so cool to work with them. They're really music fans. And I'm just ready to collaborate with a team. And like, I've got good management and I've got a great agent. Like everything's just... the last couple of years, I had to get rid of sort of everyone for a minute. And then like I got, my agent came first, my new agent with just like ideas and opinions and excitement and like listening to me in collaboration. And I was like, oh, I'm so excited to have like someone to work with, someone who actually like cares and is like thoughtful and inspired. So exciting. That's like all you want. And then he introduced me to my manager. And I'd put it out on TikTok and Instagram that I like didn't have a label and I didn't have management. And so that was sort of out there in the world. And Kill Rock Stars emailed me for like, had to be like 2 years. And at first I was like doing some meetings with them. And then I was like, guys, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I can't do this on my own. Do you know what I mean? I can't do label meetings on my own. I'm an artist. So I don't know how to do this. And so I thought, I'll just wait until I have the team in place. I'll wait until I have management. And they just like they were like, we noticed the record's not come out. Just wondering if you're still not signed. We courted, I guess, for a couple of years. And then when I got good management, like my manager picked up with everybody and was like, oh, I think this will be great. And then we just spent like last year like putting it all together, and it's really amazing to have gone on this journey to be where I am as a person, with like the confidence, the experience, my drive, the vision that I have. Like, you always need to have that drive and vision. You always need to be steering the ship, I think. But then you now having a team that actually is excited, that gets it and is supporting that, it just means that you can actually dream even more and be even more creative, which is so exciting. Because when you're running everything, you're like, oh, I'm the creative, and then you're like, oh fuck, this is broken, like you're like fixing this, and then you're like, oh god, I gotta run in the back, and like I'll be right back, like don't go into that iceberg. I'm just like everything you're doing, everything, you can't really like focus on your side of things. But I don't know how we got here from like horses on the board.
Yeah, I want to know more about the horses. I mean,
Well,
like,
I get a subscription to Pony Magazine, obviously.
Was that one of those magazines where you get like a little miniature plastic horse like stuck on the front?
No, you didn't, but you got pen pals in the back, and I had a few pen pals.
Ooh.
I loved pen pals. You asked me if I was always did you ask me if I was ready or something? I was always confident, and I always made a best friend like in the queue in the library and like at swimming club, and like I was always willing to like jump in first, I think.
Okay. What was because I think growing up with two, I don't have any siblings, so I always find it really interesting sort of like knowing about sibling dynamics. And I think having two sisters and you're in the middle, right? Like that can either, I would imagine, go where you're really competitive with each other, or you're like absolute best friends, or like, and you kind of have to fight. Like, is there a sense of like having to find out where you are in the sister jigsaw, and like who is what sort of personality? Like, where did that sort of sit with you guys?
I don't think about that. I think that we fought a lot. We fought like tooth and nail, like scrappy, literally physically. I think like what prepared me so well to wrestle and to be on Glow. Like, honestly, I was like, a lot of this reminds me of just growing up with two sisters, and like we would like physically brawl in the streets, and my mum would be so angry with us, and oh my god, my poor dad, when we all started getting hormonal, and like there was like shampoo thrown around the living room, and sisters dragged into the shed and locked there, and shirts ripped and heads punched, and just so much like pinned down and spitting, and like there's a lot of that going on. There's a thing with like, I don't feel any competition with my sisters. I wouldn't like, I've never felt like there's been difficulty in sort of my career and like my life being very different. But my sisters are like my biggest supporters, and we would all defend each other to the death. Do you know what I mean? Like, we are there for each other, and family is really important to me, and like fame isn't really important to me. And so I do remember my younger sister, like, I'll never forget this not argument, but I came home one night, it was in 2006, it was like in the build up towards 2007, like stuff was like starting to happen, had a manager, things were getting like career conversations happening. I came home one night late, and my sister was in the hallway. I don't know what had happened, but she was like, "You're being a fucking dick, Kate. You're acting like a dick." And I was like, fuck off. Like, I was so angry with her for saying it, but it hit home, and she was right. Like, I think that was like a cusp of like behavior check. Of, like, what are you doing? Like, who do you think you are, kind of thing. And I think she was right. Like, I remember it hit home because I was like, when someone says something that's true and you're like, oh shit, like I've been like, I can't really fight back because like I am kind of being a dick. You remember that moment? I'll never forget it, because I just think it was a really important moment in like grounding and not sort of getting carried away with the whole like fame thing, and sort of thinking that I'm better than anyone because I now am like, in music or whatever. So I think my sisters keep me really grounded. They've really saved my arse. So yeah, I think like 3 women with hormones are going to fight. But they're like, we're so close as well. Like, they're like the closest people. They're like the most important people to me. Yeah. It's a relationship where like you can be like, blood is dripping from you both. And then, do you want to watch The Simpsons? Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
That's very, yeah. I'd imagine also, like, if you were sort of having a real shitter of a time, then having two sort of like people that will go out to bat for you, but that will also maybe just sort of like because you know, if you're roughly the same age, you're going through these same things, and they can totally sort of, you know, maybe that a helpful thing to have at the time when the sort of outside world was being so mean and like crazy.
Yeah, I do think so. I think like my mum would sometimes like send, you know, my sisters out to me on tour if I was sort of mentally on the rocks. Like a sister would just show up and like be in a bunk on the bus, and I think like that was really important, because like just remembering who you are and where you're from, and that like like that attack on me is an attack on like all younger women. And I think that I really see that, and it does make you think about how you take it as well, because you're sort of like, okay, how are you going to speak about this? How are you going to take this on? What do you really like think about what women are supposed to be because of society's like constant like chiseling of like women? And then you have to go like, okay, well, am I going to let this affect me? Because do I really believe that? And do I want to sort of set the example that like, yeah, all these things have been said about me, so I'm going to like completely change myself. And then basically say like, yeah, we do have to be like that. You know, we do have to be like perfect. It's like, no, we fucking don't. You know what I mean? We're just human beings, and we shouldn't be perfect. Like there is no such thing. And I think having like two close sisters is definitely a big part of knowing that.
You said earlier you don't care about fame, and
yeah,
being an artist, putting your work out in public, being creative in public, having attention on you is part of it. But if what you're creating is coming from a true place of home, of your friends, of your family, being around your sisters is gonna keep you closer to that kernel, keep that idea.
Yeah. It's such a weird one for people to get their head around, I think, if they don't know, haven't experienced fame. It's like, I want to be successful and I want my career to grow. I want to reach more fans, more music fans. So maybe someone would think like, oh, you do care about fame then. I do think it's different.
Yeah. I mean, nobody asked for fucking, you know, Daily Mail kind of sidebar of shame or whatever it is. Just like, you know, nobody, I don't think that any of that is the same as wanting to connect with people who genuinely resonate with the music and wanting that to be sort of like to stretch further and to reach more people. They're so different. But I think especially in the mid noughties when like, you know, there's like the social media has really bad things and really good things, but I think in some ways maybe there is a slight more sort of awareness of the way that things are written about, or at least there'll be more of a backlash if there isn't. Whereas like it was just like the Wild West then, like there was just,
although we're now entering a new era of it with social media, because I agree, like, and even the TikTok stuff that I've been like negatively talking about, I'm like, there isn't a really cool thing from TikTok, which is like random music getting discovered by young people and then blowing up, which is so cool.
Also, we need to talk about thimbles and
oh my god, thimbles. My god, such a little nerd.
No, love it.
So that's the item that you chose, a thimble.
Yeah, I used to collect thimbles. That's so funny to say out loud. I had a glass case and I loved it. I really loved it so much. It was so beautiful. It's like this, like, had like little like curved arches, and it was like sort of this, and it pointed up and had a little glass, like, and with gold like through it. And it was like ran around and had a little door that was like, you had to pull this little metal thing like up. It was really delicate. And then I would like display my thimbles on each like level. Like, what?
When did this begin?
I don't know. I don't remember not having a passion for thimbles to be honest. I
Did
don't
you use
know.
them? Did you sew using them?
No. I displayed them in my glass case, obviously.
Was there something about Hook? Because in Peter Pan, they're quite a prominent object.
What?
Are they? No, I do not know. I think like when you've got 3 children, you're probably just trying to like go like just get into something so you can focus on something else, like other than fighting and me and like getting in the way and like because I imagine having 3 young children is really difficult. So maybe it was just like trying to get us to get into things.
Here's
I don't
something
know.
you can't break.
Oh no, they're
Are
very
they?
breakable.
They're very breakable. They're like made of China. Yeah.
Clearly not a man with a thimble collection. I think a lot of the time with collections when you're young, it just starts because maybe in passing when you were like at a family gathering with an aunt that you don't know very well, you might have been like, oh, that's nice, at something on the shelf. And then that's what you get for Christmas every single year for the foreseeable future. And then all of a sudden you're the thimble girl.
I think I liked when we traveled somewhere but we didn't travel a lot. Really, I would be like in Ireland and Gibraltar a lot because that's where my family were, and I'd be like, I want to get a thimble, from this place. But like anywhere we were, I'd be like, I need to get my like.
I need it. How many have you got? How big's the collection?
It was like, I mean, the 3 tiers were stacked. There was like, I collected for a while. I must have been in primary school still collecting. I'm, surely I gave it up for secondary school, but I probably did that with a broken heart and a little bit of resentment because that's that thing of like giving up your childhood a little bit to try to be cool. And no one wants to hear about your thimble collection when you're in secondary school today. Like they want to like talk to boys and cigarettes. They don't really want to be like, you've got what? A glass case of thimbles. Why, you sado? And you're like, never mind.
I just think they're really pretty. Bring it back. I would say that's a great piece of merch.
A thimble, a Kate Nash thimble.
Yeah.
Honestly, it actually is.
Your fans are probably quite like sewy, crafty.
They are. They're really crafty.
Yeah.
Really crafty. All right, I'm going to work on it.
There we go. Do that. Were you quite a collector of things when you were young in general? Like, were you quite sort of...
Yeah, I still am. It's quite a problem for me, really. Like, I'm trying really hard now. I'm trying in my mid-30s to be, like, not a collector of things.
Not a hoarder.
Yeah, I just feel like I've got enough things. Mm-hmm. Finally have enough things. But, like, I love things as well. Like, I have this thing about my things where I'm like, I hate my stuff. Like, I have so much stuff. Like, what the hell is wrong with me? Stuff is so annoying. And, like, there's all these books about, like, not having stuff and being zen, and I'm like, why can't you just stop being like a grandma hoarder who like has a thimble collection and just be like pure?
And now you're hoarding books about not hoarding, which is
yeah, exactly. But then when I go through my stuff to try and throw my stuff away, I'm like, but I do have really good stuff though. I'm like, this stuff is amazing. Like, how cool is stuff, And I start being like, oh, this memory, this thing, like it brings up all these. Like my star sign is a Cancer. I'm very like emotional. I have no logic. I'm all emotion. And I think I'm so nostalgic, and part of my creativity is so based in nostalgia. And I think like I love like tangible, tactile things that like remind me of things or have a memory attached, And I do love stuff. Just do. Always have.
You've made a pretty good career out of like diarizing things. So, I think if it turned out that you were like a real minimalist, I'd be quite confused. So I think
you're right. It wouldn't be on brand, would it? It wouldn't be.
No. Yeah, I think that's fine. And the things in your... So, I mean, we didn't even talk about... you had the Little Pony poster and then a lot of film things...
Independence Day poster.
Yeah. Can you remember, do you have any really strong childhood memories of like watching these sort of seminal films for the first time and having things that you were just like, my whole world is blown apart?
I remember watching Independence Day in the cinema and I was literally on the edge of my seat. I remember being sat forward like towards the end. I think, again, having 3 kids, sending them off to like kids cinema experiences is a good way to get them out of the house, especially in the summer. And I loved going to see films, and they used to have posters like out for free, like the View Cinema.
Yeah.
There'd be like posters lying around, and I just would like love to collect them and like put them on my wall and stuff.
Postcards as well. There was like loads of little sort of like
there was
promotional postcards, which it's weird, isn't it, actually, that you would just sort of put promotional, like, because half the time I hadn't seen any of those films, but I would just go into the Odeon like without even watching the film, just go in, pick up some postcards, stick them on my wall, never watch the film.
Yeah. I watched the films, but I know what you mean. Like, it was almost just like a little thing that like you could have. Mementos were like fun. Stuff is great.
It's great.
But yeah, I loved going to the cinema. Loved it. I still do. I think going to the cinema is really great. Again, it's an experiential way of consuming art that's way better than going on Netflix and like being confused for 45 minutes about what you want to watch, because every little square just starts playing and it's so stressful. And I don't want to be playing. And then I'm like, I don't know what section I'm in and where are the films and where's the genre, and like, and also going to watch films is so great because it ends. And like, I love TV and I love TV series, but there's so many now. And sometimes it stresses me out to start watching a TV show, because I'm like, there's that like non-final feeling. It's like the anticipation, especially how they're written now, because everything's about trying to like build suspense to have another series greenlit. I feel like you can sometimes feel the writer's room in the episode. You don't get shows like The Sopranos anymore, where you're going to watch 2 episodes of The Sopranos or 3 max, and then you're going to be like, I need a break. This is a lot. Like, let me take a few days off, come back to it. That's a great show. And they're not trying to hook you like nowadays shows are always trying to leave you on like and then what's going to happen? And you're like, I'm actually stressed because nothing ever finishes. So I like watching a film because you're like, it's a body of work. Do you know what I mean? Like that, it's like, this is what the film is. And
yeah, which is why you have watched 27 Fast and Furious films, because they're just a body
She just
of
loves
art,
the franchise.
You know? They're just...
No, that's about family. All right, you've got that wrong. Now, Fast and Furious is about family and loyalty, okay? Which, as you know, is very important to me.
Okay, yeah, got it.
Advice from the NYPD choir version Galway Bay.
So the song that you have chosen is Fairy Tale of New York, but not the Pogues version, the Christy Moore version, which I will admit that I wasn't really familiar with. And I feel like maybe a lot of people won't be. So why is that the superior? Is it the superior version in your eyes?
Oh, no, it's not about superiority. Like, I love the Pogues version so much as well. I just thought about childhood and music and being in the back of the car in our little Volvo, driving to either Newcastle or around Ireland, because my granny lived in Newcastle, all my cousins were in Ireland, those were our summer holidays. And there was just a lot of music played by my parents. And Christy Moore was played a lot. And there was this Live at the Point album that is so good. It's an amazing, amazing live album. And it is one of those songs, like those covers. It's a phenomenal cover. But it's not about superiority. I mean, Irish music is a lot about sharing covers as well. That's a lot of like music is shared and covered, and that's how songs kind of get passed around. I love that culture. And it's just a great take on it, because it has this really long, like, spoken intro where Christy Moore is talking about getting like, sitting down and having pints and getting drunk and then getting stuck in a fairy ring. And like, it's an amazing, like, visual thing as a kid to listen to. And I remember like hearing that so much in the back of the car, like seeing it. And I think the storytelling element in Irish music is really present in my music too. And I found, like, after going to the Brit School and studying theatre, like, I came out of that a different songwriter, and sort of thought, oh yeah, like, I want to tell stories. And then it was very natural to me. And I think that's because of my Irish background.
Mm-hmm. Would you listen to quite a lot of sort of like traditional Irish music just as a family, and like go to sort of gigs and things?
Yeah, it's way less about going to gigs and much more just it's in the fabric of society. Like you're in the pub and you've got some of the most incredible musicians ever. And it's like an 8-year-old boy on an accordion with his mum, and that's the beauty of Ireland is magic is very music magic. What's the difference? Is just embedded into culture in such an amazing way. But then, we'd go and see like Sharon Shannon and we'd go and watch shows as well. I think like Irish music was the first music I ever saw live.
Yeah, I love the idea. Like whenever you go into an Irish pub and there are just like circles of, like, I don't know any other culture in sort of Europe, definitely wider than that, but that has that sort of like thing where it feels so kind of natural and like communal. Yeah, I think there's something that maybe makes music seem like not, because I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but like I always kind of think like, if you grew up listening to like orchestral music and stuff like that, it's so technical and it's so like there's so many rules and like and it seems quite sort of far away and maybe a bit intimidating, whereas I think there's something about certain types of music, Irish folk being one of them, where it's like it's very like join in, like it's just be part of it. Like was that something that sort of felt quite encouraging to be around as like a young person that had an interest in these things?
Definitely. I think the fact that it's so natural and you don't even think about it is what's so brilliant about it is it's like it's just there. So it's accessible and it's about family and it's about like there's a really healthy attitude towards it in a way that one of the most like beautiful music experiences, live music experiences that I've ever had is when I was like I went on holiday with my boyfriend who I was like just falling in love with. And we went to Ireland for like a weekend and we ended up in this little cove, this place called Kilkee, which is like a beautiful little on the west coast. And we were staying in this like little B&B, not B&B, like sort of mini, there's like 8 rooms, 6 rooms or something in it. And it's called the Stella Marie. And Stella's the name of my dog and Marie is the name of my mum. Or it's Stella Maris, but it was like Stella Marie. And I was like, we should stay there because Stella Marie, why wouldn't we? And I had a really delicious meal. And then there was a pub around the back and you could hear the trad music playing. And we were like, let's go around there and hear the musicians, and went in and like sat in the pub. And there was this guy on the table. Like we sat sort of in the corner, it was quite busy. And it was a family like playing music in the corner, mum and kids. And there was this like older guy, like he had a laptop and a mouse and a glass of wine and a cup of tea. And he sort of, commandeered this table and we sat on these little stools and he was like, oh, come here, come and sit here. And we like ended up sitting around the table with him. His name's Michael O'Connell. And he was uploading photos from a tour on Facebook. And he's a self-appointed local historian. And people would start coming over to us and be like, oh, another victim of Michael O'Connell, and ended up chatting away to him. And he was this amazing guy who just kind of told us all this history and like started talking to us about who we were. And he was political and he's really right on. And he had like funny stories and history, like historical stories. And we chatted to him like the whole night. And throughout, like the songs were playing and at one point, when the songs are playing, there's chat going on. But then at one point, like the mum, basically the instruments go down and she's singing like an a cappella, like traditional song in Irish. And the room just fell like completely silent. Everyone just went still and it was silence in the room. And I wish that I could have had a camera crew and filmed this cinematic moment, pure magic. It just like, everyone just listened. She sang and then she stopped. And then the chat just like picked up and everyone like carried on with the conversation. And then like as the night went on, a couple other people like wanted to sing as well. This other woman we've been chatting to in her 50s or something, she just sang and she wasn't really a singer. Her tuning, wasn't really on, it didn't match. She was just sharing a song and everyone again fell silent, respected, listened to her. Beautiful. And then this other girl, like she was sitting on the bar and she was kind of like nursing a pint and she had like a cagoule on and she just sang into a pint and everyone just silence, and it was so amazing. It was so amazing. And that moment, I think, as an adult, I realized like where I'm from, and like my culture of music is just so different and so cool, and it's so communal, and it's for everyone, and everyone's going to respect anyone having a go. Like the silence in the room was not, it was just, and then you just chat and go around. I was like, this is one of the most magical experiences of my life. And I grew up around this, and I didn't really, it was just always there. You just are in it, you know. You're in a,
and it's not numbers. It doesn't have a number of followers. It doesn't have a number of likes. It doesn't matter. It's real life.
people aren't like talking through it or laughing at any, like there's just so much respect for the music, and there's respect in like someone wants to share this for whatever reason. Oh, it was so cool. It was like, it was such a moment as an adult to be like, wow, like I never realized as a kid what this is, because it was just there, and I just was kind of like, you know, I want to listen to like Mystique and like my music.
Also valid.
Very valid, very, very brilliant, right? But I didn't really think that like the fact that I played tin whistle was cool. And now I'm like, that is so fucking cool.
Yeah. And has probably massively informed, you know, just all of the stuff that you've been saying about, you know, what you prioritize in music, what you prioritize in your career, and the fact that, you know, sort of being true to yourself is more important than this sort of objective idea of what sort of like the fame game success chase should be.
It's so true.
Because, you know, if you grow up around that stuff, then you probably, you know, even if it's not conscious, it's just sort of instilled in you that that's more important.
Definitely, you know, and my mum being a nurse and like working on a cancer ward and then working in a hospice, and like Irish experiences with death are so grounded and so real, and like the respect for life, the care, like my mum's like respect and sort of like practicality and like very forward. And it's very like, my mum doesn't like people saying like, oh, they passed away or we lost someone. She's like, they died. You have to talk about death, especially as a nurse. Like, we've got to be like real about what's going on, because first of all, you don't want to confuse someone and think you've just like lost someone. Like, you actually want to deliver news in a really straightforward way, and if you don't, you can hurt people more. Like, so yeah, I think all of that has really informed everything about my career. It's interesting sort of thinking about it. It's made me think of this story. This has nothing to do with me, but this is a cool story. When my mum worked in Hammersmith on a cancer ward, there was a young girl who was around my age. I was like 14 or 15, and she was like dying of ovarian cancer. And she was a massive Westlife fan. And someone through the hospital, they'd always be trying to get, you know, some connect to something to just help like people in whatever ways they could, whether it was like, oh, we need more fans on the ward because it's boiling in the summer, or like there's a 14-year-old who's a massive Westlife fan. Does anyone have any connect to anyone that knows Westlife? Anyway, someone did, and Westlife were doing like a gig in Wembley, and they came after the gig to see this girl. And my mum always says like, it was amazing because, you know, they were at their height of like boy band fame, and like no press were there. No one ever knew they did this. And they came after work and just like spent like an hour with her, and they had like teddy bears and like merch and like Westlife things and posters, and signed everything, and like sang to her in the room, and just sort of made this kid's life. I don't even know why I'm telling you this, I guess because we were talking about Ireland and Westlife and hospital, but I love that story about Westlife that like no one really knows, you know, like, and my mum really mum always said like the fact that like no one, I never promoted it. It was just out of the good of their hearts to like come and do this. They didn't have to do it. Like, they didn't get anything. Like, you know, some people use those things to like promote themselves as like a charity. And she was like, I just loved it because they just spent so much time with her, and it just made her life to have that moment.
That's lovely.
That's nice.
So cool.
Good lads.
Yeah, good
Irish lads.
Go on. I always love my spikes.
Good. We have been asking people as a sort of nice little ending to these podcasts that, like, if there was some, you know, the kid in that photo, the 6-year-old reading a story to her sister in the bedroom, what do you think that she would be most excited or proud about when, like, she looked at your life now?
I want to say something like more grounded, but honestly, probably the outfits that I get to wear and like all the you know, like endless supply of like tutus and dresses and like pearlescent things. And I loved shiny shoes so much. And like, you know, just being like sparkly stuff. I think I would be proud that I've stayed true to my sparkly roots.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's you know what? That's actually a perfect answer, because I think like part of like what I always, not to go down another tangent because that was meant to be a finale to this conversation, but like what I always love about watching Karen O is like that she is like, if you were like 7 and somebody said draw what a pop star is, you'd just draw her. And like the fact that she has managed to retain that sort of like just sort of magical,
it's like superhero, it's like superhero, isn't it? And like their shows too, it's like I love that their shows are a spectacle even in random moments. There'll be like random moments where just like glitter just shoots out something, you're like, what? Oh my god, that's so exciting and fun, and like I didn't see it coming, and it was like probably cost like $3,000 to like shoot that glitter out of a cannon, you know what I mean? But it was so worth it.
But loved it. Well, long may your sparkly tutu fantasy continue. That was Kate Nash on the latest episode of Before They Knew Better. Give Kate Nash's new album a pre-order. It is 9 Sad Symphonies. It's out 21st of June on Kill Rock Stars. While you've got your fingers ready to do some clicking, why not give us a like and a subscribe? If you do that, you'll get all the episodes of Before They Knew Better straight into your podcast inbox on a Tuesday morning. You can go back and listen to previous ones. We've had people like Lauren Mabry of Churches, CMAP, The Cribs, who else have we had? Bob Villan, Everything, loads of people, and we've still got a few more episodes of this second series to go. The latest issue of DIY Magazine is out. It is our May issue, and it features Rachel Cheneriri on the cover. It has also got loads of great chats inside with the likes of Yanis from Foles talking about his new project. We have got, speaking of projects, Wager Project. There is a lovely chat with A.G. Cook, with the Mysteries, with Big Special, and loads more. Go and give that a read. Give DIY Magazine a purchase if you like your magazines physical, and give us a subscribe, and we will see you next week for the next episode of Before They Knew Better with DIY Magazine.